All systems are go.
Roger that, Control. We will go for console launch.
Roger that, VCS. Power supply is plugged in. Cartridge port is open.
VCS is now at full distribution and great sales anticipated ahead. Control, we have a problem. There's a dip in sales. In television and ColecoVision, catching up fast. We can't keep up with them. We're losing them. We're losing them!
The Atari VCS video game console, past its prime. Atarians, we can rebuild it. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first personal arcade machine. The 5200 will be that machine. Better than the VCS. Better graphics, faster processor, stronger arcade game library.
Ladies and gentlemen, and all of our friends domestic and abroad, welcome to our 5th episode, and it's part 1 of the Sportsapalooza Sports Series, and we have a returning guest, Steve from Wired Up Retro.
Excellent.
Steve, how you
Hello
doing
there,
today?
Bob. Hi there, Dave. Good to be here. Looking forward to sharing some interesting information about controllers.
I know. We're the OSI is just dying to find out what's going on.
All right. Well, what I wanted to talk about kind of is a springboard off of the first podcast that we did together, and I was talking about an adapter that's an old school PC controller to Atari 5200 adapter, and it's made by a guy at Atari Age who goes by the name of Bohoki. And so, we talked a little bit about those controllers and how it's beneficial, kind of opens up, what kind of controllers you can use on the 5200. Well, I've now managed to find an adapter that can actually plug into that PC to 5200 adapter. And this is made by a company called Innovation, and it's called the Emulator Adapter, okay? And what it does is it converts PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 and Nintendo 64 controllers to PC, old school, those 15-pin PC adaptable controllers. So it's basically can be plugged into the Bohoki adapter and allow all those kind of controllers to work on the Atari 5200. So I've managed to, plug it all in together, these two adapters plugged in daisy-chained together, and I found that analog functionality is fully working on the 5200 with the thumbsticks of these controllers.
Ooh.
And
wow.
The digital D-pad functionality for 5200 games that do best with digital controls like Pac-Man work very, very well also. So it's kind of an amazing little find. And again, the adapter is called the Innovation Emulator Smart Joy Adapter. And it's got a second name on the box, the Emulator Adapter. So there you go. So I just wanted to go into what I found out when I tried a variety of different controllers with these two adapters connected to my 5200. One thing I did try initially was Super Breakout. And it just felt like the N64 analog thumbstick was really much more smooth on its control than the PlayStation dual analog controller. And I'm not sure why that was. It just seemed like the PlayStation controller had a little more jitteriness on that game. But, it was a really good time playing that. And then I tried out the steering for the game Pole Position, and I plugged in a PlayStation 1 DualShock controller, and I wasn't getting any jitteriness at all. It was a really smooth drive. And then I kind of got curious, and I thought, I got some PlayStation 1 analog racing controllers, one of which is the almighty Nijicon made by Namco. And when I plugged that in, Oh my gosh, the pole position experience just went up about 5 levels, and I think I've never gotten that far in the game ever before.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there, Steve. So the NinjaCon, this is like a steering wheel controller itself?
Yeah, it's a handheld steering wheel controller that has a twist action steers, and the left shoulder button changes your gear from low to high. And it's done by pressing in and holding, and that puts you in low gear. And then when you release it, it goes into high gear. And
I wish you could see the grin on my face right now.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, it's so great. It feels fantastic to race pole position with that NinjaCon controller. It really does. And I also tried a variety of other PlayStation 1 racing controllers with it as well. Some of them were decent. It's the problem is some of them are dial controllers that have a very short throw, and the NinjaCon has such a large throw with that twist action that it just offers a lot more. You could just say it's more efficient, and it's got a lot more sensitivity to it. So some were better than others. Definitely the NinjaCon is the one to go with, though. And I didn't even plug in a steering wheel. But I'm figuring all those PlayStation 1 steering wheels or even PlayStation 2 steering wheels will work with it as well. And that might give you that nice long throw like the NinjaCon does too. So anyway, but you can play those games, the racing game, and you can also play, Galaxian and Space Invaders, all those games that would be, compatible with the analog controls are going to work great. And I don't have Tempest, but I've come up with an interesting idea, though. And Namco in Japan made a special PlayStation 1 controller called the Volume Controller. And it is just a dial that turns you left and right. So I'm thinking the Volume Controller doesn't have stopping points to the right or to the left. You can just spin it. And so I'm thinking, well, that might be one that I want to go pick up on eBay and see how that works. And also get myself a Tempest game finally. So we'll see. Another controller that looks interesting, I kind of doubt it's going to work, but it's a PlayStation 2 Japanese controller called the Roulette controller. And it looks like the spinner from the board game Life mounted on top of a controller. So I'm thinking, when I played Life as a kid, I loved spinning that dial. And I kind of think maybe this feels the same way. I don't know. But if it spins freely both clockwise and counterclockwise, that could be, the ultimate Tempest controller for the 5200. So, yeah.
That would be cool. That would be very cool.
Yeah. And I'll just mention one other thing. There were a ton of controllers I tried which were not compatible. I tried the PlayStation 1 Nyko Classic Trackball. It was a no-go. Daggone it. I was hoping for another trackball on the 5200. And I also tried this adapter that's made for the PlayStation 2 that lets you use a mouse and a keyboard on your PlayStation 2. And when I plugged that in, and I tried a variety of different, trackballs for the PC and mice for the PC, and I even tried my tank stick trackball with it. I could not get that to work. So, yeah, I was a little bummed about that. The Ultra Racer 64 was not compatible, and the SuperPad 64 wasn't compatible. But I did manage to get the Xbox Controller S working with the addition of a third adapter called an XP Joybox adapter. So that was kind of exciting, actually using an Xbox fully analog on the 5200. So awesome.
Cool. Very cool.
And I played another game. I played Missile Command with this PlayStation 1 Eagle Max joystick. It's a real tall flight joystick. And this thing actually has on it these vertical fine-tuning trim adjusters for the horizontal and vertical movement. And I tuned it in just perfect on my 5200 to play both Missile Command and Star Wars the Arcade game. Really a fantastic experience with playing Star Wars the Arcade game. I did more accurately with that than I've ever done with any other controller on the 5200. So
yeah, that's a tough game because they're trying to translate everything from the arcade game, which is you have that basically that cockpit yoke, the airplane yoke in front of you, to a joystick, and it doesn't. It's almost. Yeah, it's kind of dicey and everything. I know some people actually turn the controller upside down to try to get that arcade feel to it and everything, and it'd be kind of fun to actually do what you just did, which is to put those controllers together and play that game and see how it works.
Yeah, well, it definitely was a good experience. And I also have a PlayStation 2 controller called the Radica Phoenix Revolution. And what this PlayStation controller does, it has these little, the thumbsticks can actually be dismounted from the unit and put into different positions. And so can the X and circle and square and triangle buttons. You just take them out and put them into different positions. So what I did was I took the left stick and put it way over on the right side of the controller so I could use my right thumb to control the directional movement, and then I put the buttons over on the left side, and then I was getting right-hand control on my 5200 games with gamepad. So that was kind of neat too. But all the games like Dig Dug and Pac-Man, they, no matter what controller you use, like PlayStation 1 or N64, they control just really, really well. So, yeah, I would definitely say that this is a neat little discovery for the 5200 fans. And there are a number of these available on eBay. And I don't know if you look it up with the keywords emulator, smart joy adapter, or innovation PlayStation to PC 15-pin adapter, but it's listed with one of those keywords there. I'm sure you can find it. There's more of them left. I didn't get the last one. There's at least probably a dozen of them out there, I think. So, yeah, kind of available. It's available.
Cool. Steve, just send us the information via the messenger, and we'll put it up on the Facebook page. What to look for, what to hunt down, and everything else. And the nice thing is we'll have proper spellings, so people can plug it in, and then I can fight them out on eBay to try to get all this cool stuff and everything. It's and I'm kind of excited because a lot of the people that I work with, we're starting to get millennials into the airline, and they were. And one of the things that we've realized is that millennials grew up with this technology. They are basically hardwired into technology from day one. Especially, I just see my 8-year-old daughter, and my daughter just, she can hack pretty much anything, and this is normal. This is just normal for them. So the millennials are pretty much the same way. I know they take a look at the old controllers and go, really, is this really what you did? But they're used to the whole PlayStation, using multiple thumbs and everything else to manipulate the game and everything else. So this I'm excited because this brings that generation in, so they have something that they're used to that they can play these games with and go, oh, hey, this is really cool. I really like this game, and they can enjoy it in their own fashion as well.
Yeah, and I have an appreciation for the old controllers and the new controllers as well. I mean, I've gamed through all the generations, and I've come to appreciate different aspects of each kind of generation's controller. So, there's pros and cons, but even with the latest of controllers, there's cons. So,
always is. That's you. What did P.T. Barnum say? You can never satisfy all the people all the time.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. Well, this is my pocketbook's going to take another hit.
Well,
here we go again.
For mine, I think I only spent around $15 or something. It wasn't very expensive, and it came with a box. So, box and let me see if it had the I don't think it had the instructions, but just the box. Yeah, but on the back it kind of shows you how to hook it up, so you don't really need instructions.
Steve,
okay.
Steve, will we be looking forward to a brand new wired up retro video soon?
Retro should be having a video on this in the next month and a half. I'm doing right now a video on the Xbox, original Xbox that's modded, running the Atari 5200 emulator with some unique controllers besides the ones I mentioned already. So I've got some other controllers I'm going to be showing off with that. So that should be an interesting take on emulating the 5200.
Excellent. Well, it's taken quite a bit of time for us to actually record, so giving us about 4 to 6 weeks, I should have the editing done by then.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. That's all I can say.
We got to just keep from falling apart. That's the whole key here. It's.
I think the 5200 is going to outlive us all.
I'm sure it will.
It's no wrinkles or anything else, and it hasn't gained any weight. So it's the 5200 still looking as good as it did the day it came out of the box way back when. So
Yes, sir. Okay, so
wish
now,
I could say the same.
well, I can't say the same. I know that for sure.
Sounds good. News. Always good news and never fake news here at the Atari 5200 podcast.
That's right. We're going to make the Atari 5200 great again.
It's great.
Oh, no. I think they could start a riot.
Please don't drive by my house and throw eggs. Don't worry, no.
This is Shinto from the Atari Jaguar Game by Game podcast. If you like video games with keypads on the controllers, and heck, who doesn't, then check out my show. And ColecoVision's and Intellivisionaries, but definitely the Atari 5200 podcast. What you have, good for you. Now back to the hosts of the Atari 5200 podcast, David and Captain Bob, who are able to store their keypad overlays on the back of the game cartridges. I'm kind of jealous.
All right. Well, hey, news within the Atari community. I'll just kind of go with what I've been seeing. I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but retro is in right now. Holy smokes. I think one of the biggest announcements is Atari Box. I mean, if anybody is within the retro gaming community and just kind of keeping their thumb on the pulse there, Atari Box is a big thing. What is it? We don't know.
That's a good question. Who knows?
Who knows?
By the looks of the crowdfunding, maybe they don't even know either.
Yeah,
it kind of looks like that.
It's pretty.
Yep.
Yeah, I would just buy it if it had nothing electronic in it. I would just buy it, because it looks nice.
I would almost hazard a guess if they could make that box and just put the old games on it and kind of go up against the flashback or something, but actually have a Stella chip running it and everything and kind of adapt it so it would run on HD televisions and stuff like that. I would love to play these games in 4K and actually make it work.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That would be fun. I mean, they don't have to go very far with it. Heck, Steve, you could probably build one of these at your house.
Yeah, probably. Who knows really what it is, though? They might have their own games. There might be a whole new Alien versus Predator, like the Jaguar had. You just never know. Something unique.
It's just multiple retro, retro compatibility, stuff like that. But the thing is, nobody knows what it is. It looks pretty. They're reaching out to developers and everything else. Who knows where this is going to go? I can't say I'm excited. I can't say I'm disappointed because I don't know what it is. But I'm leaving an open mind. It's like, all right, hey, the paint job looks good. Let's see what you got under the hood.
Yeah, and if it even has some emulation capability, that would be nice. If that's all it is, I'd still be pretty happy with it. So plug an SD card into it and game away.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's also some other stuff coming down the pipe. We got the Retron 77. That's done by a separate company and everything. So they're mirroring that. It's time to actually play old games as well. And hopefully in conjunction with the Atari box, I hope this kind of shows a new resurgence of Atari. Maybe the people who own the brand and own the trademarks and copyrights and everything else. I hope Atari Incorporated figures it out this time. That just, leasing out their sounds and logos and stuff like that just isn't enough. We love Atari because these are the games. This is the experience that we're looking for. We'd love for them to expand on that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's like All-American, and it's apple pie and baseball and Atari, right? So
Beautiful. I mean, you just summed up the 70s right there.
Yeah.
As a sidebar here, any of you guys seen the new Blade Runner 2049 preview? The trailers?
I haven't seen it, but I'd love to see it in the theater when it comes out.
Okay, the new previews are out. I would highly suggest going to imdb.com. They got all the trailers there. And there's this beautiful scene where one of those, the spinners, the flying cars, otherwise known as spinners, there's a spinner that's flying along between buildings, and right there, I mean, the entire side of the building is lit up with the Atari Fuji symbol and Atari underneath it. It looks like a future that could have been. And you see it, I mean, definitely, I mean, you see this and goosebumps just rise on your arms, because you're like, this is the future that could have been. It's just, and not only that, but I'm so excited to see that movie. But yeah, there's a great moment where it only lasts for a few seconds, but here's the spinner flying between buildings, and here's this massive side of the building, Atari logo, Atari underneath it. It's gorgeous.
Wow.
Also, let's see, just kind of working a little bit on my Atari 5200 collection. There was a lot of catalogs that was up for bid on eBay. Ended up winning it, and I think it was about three or four different game manuals that I got. One of them was Montezuma's Revenge. So
nice. That's a tough one to find.
Tell me about it. I've had the feelers out for a long time. Well, when I got my Montezuma's Revenge copy, bought it at a garage sale from a friend of mine, got the cartridge, got the box, did not have the manual. Now I got the manual. It's all nice and happy, all together again. So yeah, now I have a complete Montezuma's Revenge edition. It's great. Yeah. I'm happy.
That's sweet. I'm really debating on Tempest whether to get the full package or just the cartridge alone, but I figure the extra $20 is probably worth it to get the instructions in the box. But
well, Steve, if you had sent your submission in to the Tempest giveaway,
there you go.
You may have had a chance to win.
There you go.
But I'm kind of part of the show. It'd be like, everyone who saw me win would say, wait a minute, what are those guys doing?
there is that. There's a ringer. What's going on here? And last but not least, yes, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I will be going to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. I believe it starts in October 20th. Already bought my tickets. We're ready to go. In fact, this is now a new tradition between my family and all of our friends that we went to college with and their families. We're very excited about it. I'm going to be milling around there, just kind of geeking out like I usually do. But definitely check out who's going to be there. I thought last year was good. This year is incredible. Okay. They're bringing in some of the old box artists.
One of the main things you want to go by is, of course, the Atari Age booth. Albert always has a massive presentation, a massive display of awesome 5200, 2600, 7800 stuff. So definitely, he's a booth you want to visit. Great. And don't also forget our 8-bit pal, Paul Westfall at 8bitfix.com. He has a booth there, too, with a lot of Atari 8-bit goodness.
Yeah, it's everybody who shows up, it's just incredible. I'm just going to mention a few names of who's going to be there. Here we go. And I can't go through it all, but go to retrogamingexpo.com, and they have a whole list and a schedule and everything else. But here are some of the names. Here we go. Get ready. Buckle up. David Crane, Joe DeCure. Oh, man, this is Ed Freeze. Todd Fry's going to be there. Todd Fry's an absolute hoot. You hear the stories of him, the wild man of Atari. He still is. He's absolutely great.
Will Dan Kramer be there?
I don't know if Dan Kramer's going to be there, but Steve Hendricks is going to be there. He did the box art for Atari, for Haunted House, Defender, Warlords. Gary Kitchen's going to be there. Oh, goodness
that would be
gracious.
Keystone Capers, right?
Yeah. Ron Milner, one of the guys who, worked at in the design department. It just goes on. Pamela Smith, she did the artwork for Miss Pac-Man for the Atari 2600.
Oh.
Of course, the ever amazing and awesome Howard Scott Warshaw is going to be there. Rob Zadibel's going to be there. And then a whole host of others. Of course, the Angry Video Game Nerd is going to be there. It's going to be just a great.
Hey, we could have a little talking to him.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? If you actually meet him, he's actually a really great guy. So yeah, that's I don't even think that's half of the people that are going to be there at this show. So yeah, if you can make it out to the West Coast, out to Portland, Oregon, and come to this thing, we're talking October 20th through the 22nd. It's totally worth it. Spend a little extra to get early entry. You can get in and kind of mill around if you want to do some purchasing and stuff like that.
I went to the Central Ohio Retro Gaming League get-together back in June here in Ohio. It's called Korgs. And they made it's a pretty big gathering of people selling video games. And I got a chance to meet Leonard Herman, who has written the historical aspect of the classic gaming history. So I had a good talk with him. It was really nice. He's a great guy, definitely.
All right. David, do you have anything to add?
Well, I ordered copies of Castle Crisis and Ratcatcher from Atari Age. Just for those people in case they don't know, Castle Crisis has been for sale for quite some time. It's basically the Atari arcade game Warlords. And it's a version for the 5200. It's a fast-paced game. Up to 4 players can compete against one another or computer opponents. You can use your shields. You must capture and launch fireballs against the enemy's castle while protecting your own castle from enemy fireball hits. Gameplay mechanics and graphics mirror the arcade, with additional gameplay options available, adding variety to an already great game. Simply one of the best arcade ports available on the 5200. So that's in the mail. I'm waiting for that to show up. Again, I also mentioned Ratcatcher, which is a simple arcade-style game for 1 to 3 players. It's largely inspired by Mario Brothers and Tato's Zookeeper. The city sewer has been overrun by nasty critters. Grab some friends and clean it out. The rats need to be caught. Trap them with the sewer gates if you can, but beware of deadly alligators that prowl the depths. The city water system can keep them under control, but deadlier hazards await as you ascend into the depths. Ratcatcher features 3-player simultaneous action as you and 2 friends or enemies race to rack up the most points. Work with your partners using the gates and the water system to keep things under control, or undermine your competitors, leaving them in the depths as alligator food. Now, I also have a soft spot for the Atari 2600, so I have ordered a copy of an amazing arcade port of Scramble.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that was a must-buy. So that, thank you, Albert. That's also coming my way. And I guess I should mention, since I plastered it all over Facebook and Atari Age, that I ended up buying another trackball controller for the 5200.
Nice.
Well, I saw it was like $75, and I was thinking, hold a second, $75 for a brand new, never opened Atari 5200 trackball controller mint.
I wonder if that's the same guy I got mine from years ago.
And those boxes can go for like $30 or $40.
Well, of course, thanks to our friends from Venezuela again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it was like $75 with $25 shipping. So yeah, it was $100. But as you said, you can go on eBay. You can find used and abused Atari 5200 trackballs for the same amount of money or more. So I had to jump on it. So
after when we review the games of which we're about to review, I might have to pick up a second trackball controller. I might just have to do it because we're going to be talking about our Sports-a-Palooza here, and I was assigned football, and you know what? It actually prominently puts it. I actually have I bought a mint and sealed box copy of RealSports Football, and it prominently displays on here trackball compatible.
Yep.
And I'm happy to say that it is.
Yep.
More on that later,
Yep.
but I mean that there are reasons to get this game. I mean to get that controller.
Yeah. And soccer is also trackball compatible.
Yes, it is.
Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
So trackball goodness. That's why you cannot, regardless, you want to squawk about the Atari 5200, you want to squawk about its size, you want to squawk about its controllers. La, 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 la. But we got the best trackball, and too bad for you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Okay, thank you, Dan Kramer.
Oh, we cannot thank you enough, Mr. Dan Kramer.
Okay.
Dan Kramer, you're just awesome.
Now, for people who might know, Video 61 and Atari sales, it's a business that's been around for a while, and they continue to make brand new games, especially for the Atari 8-bit computer systems. Oh, hold on a second. Glen is online.
Yeah, I finally decided to show up.
Holy moly.
You know us New Yorkers, man. We don't follow anyone else's beat. Apologize, guys.
No problem. No problem.
I'm so happy to have you here.
So I thought today was Friday, Thursday. I'm all messed up.
No, it's okay. It probably was my lack of communication and everything else. So,
but I got to say, and I obviously didn't get into the beginning of this, but I got to say it now. David finally did not outbid me on a trackball controller, and I have my own 5200 trackball controller, and that thing is awesome.
Oh, excellent!
Very good.
You can't playing Missile Command now and Centipede. It's unbelievably better. And it's really nice. So, David, thank you for not outbidding me on this one.
No problem. I was busy buying the brand new one from Venezuela. No, I'm happy you got one finally. And you'll notice that once you have the trackball and you start playing those games with the trackball, you'll start to see that nobody can compete with the 5200.
Yeah, I'd say that the Missile Command just takes on a whole new level. It's one of my favorite games, and just playing with that trackball, it's just a totally different level of playability on it. It's really, really good.
This is an arcade game. This is the new Atari Super System. Arcade, Atari Super System. You may like the Super System better. It has some of the best arcade and sports games. It even does something no arcade game can.
Telephone! It's Judy!
It lets you freeze the action.
Hello, Judy.
The new 5200 Super System.
If your dealer's sold out, keep trying. We're making them as fast as we can.
Okay, so there's been a lot of excitement recently on Atari Age. There's a programmer. He goes by the Atari handle. I'm gonna spell it first. PETEYM5. I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce that.
I'm going to say Pete YM5.
Okay, Pete YM5. So he posted basically Video 61 on Atari sales. He's working on porting its 8-bit games to the 5200. The 5200 versions will have some differences that make them special to the 5200. Possible games he indicated were Amok Bots, Delta Space Arena, Laser Blast X, Megoids, and Venture. Venture from Video 61 is possibly, for the 8-bit version, is possibly the best Venture on any 8-bit system. Video 61 and the programmer had formed a new team to figure out how to continue with the projects. One problem is that they need to track down some 32K blank cartridge boards. They have 16K blank cartridge boards, and they're thinking about compressing the file to be able to fit onto a 16K board. But the problem is when the ROM gets expanded into the memory of the 200, it currently needs over 20K. And another 6K for video, variables, etc. And the 5200 can only do 16K RAM. So right now, Venture for the 5200 is on the back burner, but hopefully it will come out. And because from the ROM that did get leaked, I only heard good reviews from it. So let's hope that it will eventually come out, because definitely that will be a purchase for me. Now, I just want to give a few big shout-outs to the following people. part of the Atari community. People who make the Atari community great and a lot of fun and stuff like that. So I'm going to give a shout out to Mark Hayden. On Atari Age, he's known as C. Thransome. And you can find him, again, on Atari Age Facebook pages. He refurbishes 5200 controllers, including adding the gold kits, and sells many Atari-related controllers and games. I got a gold refurbed 5200 controller from him, and it works great. I also recently bought from him a Suncom TAC2 controller for my 2600. Works great. And you can send him your broken controllers to repair. Now, another person I want to also put a shout out to is Atari Guy 1021. His name is Sean, and he's the maker of the Master Play clone with the paddle support. He also makes a replacement for the Wiko keypad. And now he's created a Bohoki type adapter that will allow you to connect your favorite 15-pin PC controller to use with your 5200. And he does great work and stands by his products, and I highly recommend him. And, of course, I got to throw something out for Bohoki because, he created a very inexpensive but versatile PC controller to 5200 adapter. So these are just like three people I want to say hello to, a shout-out to, because they've helped me.
Your gaming experience.
That's right. These guys help enhance my gaming experience for the Atari.
And I'll tell you, Bohoki is, if you ever meet him in person, he's one of the nicest gentlemen you'll ever meet. I hope he has some of this stuff for sale down at the PRGE. I would love to throw him some of my ducats to...
Sure.
To buy some of these adapters and everything. So if you're listening, Bohoki, bring some adapters. I'll see you next month.
Now, just throw something else in. I think most of us know Ferg from the Atari 2600 podcast.
Oh, yes.
And he's going to plug our show because I have sent him a copy of Atari Age's 2600 version of Ladybug.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's going to be doing a giveaway and plugging the show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good.
So looking forward to that next episode of his where he will be talking about our show.
Excellent.
Very good.
We got to have him on the show one of these days.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Glenn, are you still there? Tell us what you've been up to, dude.
Well, I will say that my channel has finally surpassed 525 subscribers, so I'm very excited about that.
Bravo.
And I'm really very humbled by the people on the channel. They're a great group of people. I've not had too much time to work on my mini-cades. I'm still in the process of working on a few of them. I'm testing out some new screens. I'm testing out some new sound cards. I'm testing out a couple of screens with sound cards built in. I will say, though, I'm going to be trying to go to the Atari East show that's going to be happening in New Jersey. I'm trying to look up exactly where it's going to be. But I'm going to represent the podcast as well as my channel and bring some of my Atari hardware. I'm going to try to bring my Atari 400, my Atari XE, anything else I can stuff in my car to get down to the show.
Don't forget the trackball.
Where is that at? Is that New York City?
It's in New Jersey, and I'm just trying to look up exactly where it is. I'll probably find it, of course, and as you move into the podcast. It was right on my phone, and here we go. Atari Party East 2017. But I'll find out more details on it. Maybe we could put it into the show notes when I put it on my channel. People can check it out. But I'm definitely going to represent us and the 5200, of course, as well as other Atari products.
And as I said, make sure you bring that trackball.
Oh, the trackball will definitely be there. It's all nice and clean. Nice.
Is there anything else, Glenn?
No, I mean, there's really just hasn't been time. I have like 50 projects in my head, and if you can see my desk right now, I mean, even for me, it's a mess. But there's so many different things I'm trying to test out and get going. But work keeps getting into the way, and it's just I didn't win the lottery. Obviously, I didn't win Powerball. I didn't get my $700 million, which case I could have set up everything I needed.
Yeah, can you imagine if you won the $700 million? We would go. This podcast we could have everything: video, sound effects.
We'd be on CBS,
CGI graphics.
I would never let money corrupt us. We got to
I would.
No, we would still remember the podcast
shallow.
from before.
I would. It would be great. But yeah, we'd let's get our own channel or something. That'd be great.
Our own network, right?
There you go.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think G4 actually tried that a while back, but oh well.
Yeah, drat.
Come to goes. I think I won $2, so I'll buy myself a power plug or something.
All right, listeners, tonight we have a special guest host. He's been a professional broadcaster in the Metro Detroit area since 2002. Currently, he works for the Total Traffic and Weather Network, a division of iHeartMedia, and can be found on FM radio 106.7 WDTW, the D, and AM radio on Detroit's 1130 WDFN, the Fan. Peter Spivak, come on down. You're the next guest host of the Atari 200 podcast.
I can't believe I'm here. I'm hugging all four of you.
Yes.
All four of you get hugged. Thanks for having me on. This is awesome, guys. Thanks for having me on. This is spectacular.
Peter, it's an honor and privilege to have you here.
We need to get some of the 5200 sportscaster sound effects of the screaming fan.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Right on. God, guys, this is great. You guys have a tremendous podcast here. It's kind of funny how I stumbled upon you during my search of 5200 knowledge and all that stuff, because I'm old, man. I'm about 42 and a half years old, soon to be 43, and so I go back to the days of the 5200 like you guys. So I get it. I get the love for the retro,
So you were there with the rest of us during those golden years and everything else when all this stuff started rolling out.
Oh, yeah, and I got the fever from playing the 2600 at my cousin's houses when we go over to visit and stuff like that. So I'm like, Mom and Dad, please help me out. What did they get me? Not a 2600. They got me a 5200. That was my first system, guys.
Man,
wow.
Lucky guy. That's lucky.
That's amazing. Well, hey, Peter, hey, Captain Bob here, and I would love for you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we found out how you got into the 5200. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I appreciate that, Captain Bob. As you know, I am Peter Spivak, but actually I go more by Pete. So if you can call me either Pete or Peter, doesn't really matter. But I am a broadcaster in the Metro Detroit area for iHeartRadio Detroit and Total Traffic and Weather Network. And no longer am I with 106.7 WDTW, but that's not a big thing. They just move us around from station to station. Now I'm just strictly 1130 WDFN, the Fan, and then I do Sirius Satellite Radio. I'm actually the afternoon drive time guy on channel 135. So the voices volley between Detroit, Chicago, and I believe Tampa Bay.
Oh, wow.
Kind of a weird option, you know what I mean? So I'm the 3 to 8 voice on there for the Detroit traffic between 3 and 8 p.m. So I do that stuff. I've been in broadcasting, like Dave said, since 2002, and got into the 5200, like I said, early on in my life. How about you guys? How did you guys get started in the podcast? I want to know that stuff.
I was, in fact, here's my story was that I was in training for a brand new aircraft at my airline. Haven't flown it or anything else. Got awarded the position, and I was pretty excited. And what happened was, this was way back when it was the Atari 5200 Super podcast with Willie and RK. And by the way, Willie, if you're listening, I do apologize for not being able to hook up with you for lunch a few weeks back. Everything just kind of snowballed on me, and I was like, because he was here in town in Seattle. But anyways, what had happened was I wrote into the podcast, and Willie reached out to me to say, hey, would you like to contribute to the podcast? And I was like, hey, this is great. So, kind of started getting into the research and everything else, and kind of digging into the 5200, learning more and more. And it was a good distraction to keep me. Basically, when training got a little too intense, you needed a break. This is what I did. I started doing the research on it. So Willie and RK eventually decided to kind of go away from the podcast, and that's how I picked up here. Willie has since kind of started up a sister broadcast along with this. So they just talk about, they kind of reminisce about using, or I should say playing the 5200. We're the nitty gritty. We do the digging and everything else. So it really, the two really complement each other. So that's how I got into it. I needed a break.
That's cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Well,
Glenn, I love your channel, man. Glenn, how about you? I mean, like I said, the Retro Show is a great show. I mean, how'd you do that?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. And actually, I was a radio personality myself back in the 90s. But my last name, Platamenta, was too Italian. So I had to use my middle name. I was Glenn Fredericks with WHD Radio in Westchester for a little while. But getting on the podcast was actually, I was bidding on this trackball on eBay. And some guy, David, like last minute swooped in and sold my trackball. So we find out that, no, I'm kidding. I didn't mean it that way. But David, I think actually David hit me up a couple of times on some of the Facebook groups we were on. And we just started talking for a while. And he asked, I'd done a couple of my shows and one was on the 5200, and he kind of asked me if I wanted to kind of chime in a little bit. And I was only supposed to be a guest host for one episode, but I ended up being Rudy Wells on the podcast. So I kind of got sucked into there. But my 5200 roots, when I was 12 years old, back in the 80s, there was a new video store where I grew up in Yorktown, and I haunted the guy, because it was a video store, and I was so in love with anything video. And they were an Atari distributor. So the Atari rep had come in, and we saw the early prototype 5200, and I fell in love with it back then. And I've been with it pretty much ever since.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Steve, Dave, how about you guys?
I'll pipe up. I'm Steve Averitt. I run a YouTube channel called Wired Up Retro. I'm also an Atari Age guy who spends a little time playing all sorts of Atari systems, everything from Atari 2600 to 5200 to Atari Jaguar, and even Atari computer. So I keep pretty busy with all that. And I kind of came into the podcast just, David contacted me and said he appreciated some of the info I was sharing on my channel. So I've been on 2 or 3 of the podcasts at this point. So having a lot of fun. It's been a very enjoyable experience all around. I'm sure you're going to have a good day today.
And
cool.
we love to have multiple prints on the weapons that we use around here. So it's always good to have a second set of prints around. And I know that's an ongoing joke of mine, but it just kind of it's a 5200 community, and it's one thing to just talk about it and everything else, but it just makes everything just so much richer when we can bring people in who have a common love of something, and we can chat about it and actually really go into it.
Well, Pete, as you might have heard in the first episodes of this podcast, and maybe the original, the Atari Super podcast, this was my first console that I ever had in my life, and my mother bought it for me one day back in, I think it was 83. She was visiting some cousins in the States, and she brought home this huge box, and I remember putting it together and playing Pac-Man and Star Raiders and Wizard of War, and I was just hooked. It's like a beautiful, sleek console. I never hated the controllers, like a lot of people do sometimes. I don't know. But I got used to them. Yeah, it's true. I mean, they're not the best controllers for 4-way games or 8-way games, but for games that really require little minute controls, they're like excellent. And so what happened was I ended up getting back into retro, and then I saw Willie and Arcade. They were starting the Atari 5200. I think it was called Super Podcast. And so they were gracious enough to let me on their show to be the homebrew guy. And basically, I was going to have a little segment in which I would talk about homebrew games. And if I really think my podcasting skills suck now, They were atrocious before. So
you've improved.
At least I think I have.
But here's I'm going to interrupt for just a second, David. But here's the thing for David. I mean, I got kind of, I don't want to. The podcast was handed to me, and I had absolutely no idea how to do this whatsoever. I basically recorded my segment off of my iPhone while I was sitting in my crash pad in Minneapolis. So the actual editing and everything else, I mean, completely clueless. I'm really good at flying planes and collecting check. After that, it gets really things get really dodgy. So David reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, do you need some help with this?" And I was like, "Do I need help? My goodness, I totally need help with this." So yeah, that's how David and I started cracking away at this thing.
Yeah. Well,
David, back to you.
Well, let's put you this way, Pete. You probably already know by our intro, we're all kind of $6 Million Man fans. So,
oh yes.
So, for example, you have Bob, Captain Bob. He's obviously Steve Austin. He's the pilot. And then we have, now in the show, there was about 3 different actors who played Rudy Wells. So we've got Glen is one of the Rudy Wells. We've got Steve. I think one time we were joking. I thought he might be Sasquatch, but So
what was up with that Sasquatch stuff? I don't know. Again, a shout out to Tom Burgess here of iGrewUpStarWars.com. He's obsessed with it, and he just lives across the just right on the other side of town from where I live, and yeah, he's completely obsessed with Sasquatch. We had to drag him in.
Okay.
When we do our Star Wars episode. So
basically, I'm Oscar Goldman, and. I basically am the guy who hires the talent.
Perfect.
So that's my talent. My talent is making sure to hire the right guys for the job.
That's like a superpower.
I guess so. It's kind of lame superpower, but still.
It's like a superpower.
It's a vital superpower.
Right.
I'm also comic relief. Okay.
Is there a $6 million man Atari 5200 game out there?
There should be.
We're waiting for the homebrew.
Well,
we're waiting for the homebrew.
Yeah. Well,
here's
Pete.
your homebrew.
Yeah. Well, Pete, let's put it to you this way, Pete. If you would like to become a regular or semi-regular, whatever you like, I think I could get a place for you. I think there was a guy called the $7 Million Man.
That is correct.
Wow.
Yeah. Barney Miller, the $7 Million Man. That could be your post. If you play your cards right.
Go, everyone will see how you're exactly right if I pass the test.
Hello there, everybody. This is Mel Allen for Atari RealSports. For you baseball fans, Atari gives you super pitching, hitting, and stealing. And with Atari football, there's outstanding running, kicking, and long balls. Hey, touchdown! How about that? New Atari RealSports. Folks, it's almost as much fun as being here.
These Super Sports graphics only on the new Atari Super System. Hot dogs sold separately.
All right.
So,
I'm gonna
good, guys.
get things. I'm gonna go ahead and come back to Pete here. Pete, now here's the thing, and I'm gonna admit this. I'm not the biggest fan of sports games. I love playing sports. I love watching sports. Playing them on a video game is kind of one of those things where it's and I'll talk about it when I'm talking about my segment for football. But how are you with like video games? I mean, do you play any of the modern consoles like Xbox, PlayStation, any of that?
Well, I do, and that's the ironic thing. I would rather play an Atari sports game than a PlayStation or an Xbox sports game. I mean, that's the irony of the whole thing that goes back to my retro roots. One, because they've overcomplicated the issue now, and two, I just want to plug in and play the game. It's just that simple, and you can do that with an Atari and get just the... I mean, we look at the Atari 5200 football game. I believe that's the first game, and I don't know, Glenn and Steve, I don't know if you guys would know. Isn't that the first game that provided playbooks?
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to get into
right.
that. It's not just playbooks. In fact, I think there was like originally a poster. Now the one that I have, actually has the manual for how to play the game, and then there's a visitors football playbook and a home team football playbook. And I think originally what they did was they printed this out. So you would just flip one over. So if it was either the home team or the visitor team, you would flip it over, and it would basically, it was a mirror image of what you were trying to do. But there are, I think this was about $16K for what it is. They packed as much stuff possible into this thing. It is insane, and I'll tell you. There's more literature with this than there would if you signed up for Direct TV or something.
That's the big thing too. Is how they were to squeeze and code intelligently to get it to fit into that space. Now they have so much space, they code sloppily, but they had to be very smart in how they coded this game, and especially sports games. There's a lot of plays in there, a lot of things involved with it, and the AI's got to be involved in there. Very creative programming.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a marvel. I mean, it really is, and we'll get to that here in a bit. But I'll tell you, I love the new sports games. I think they're incredible. I mean, if you're walking by, in an electronics store and there's an attract mode and they have like Madden 2017 up and running, I mean, a lot of times I'm like, wait a second, what is this game? Sometimes they'll put on, especially here in the Seattle area, the Seattle Seahawks, and they'll be playing somebody, and I'm like, wait a second, I didn't see this game. What is going on here? And then I realize this isn't a game. This is PlayStation playing the game in attract mode, and I'm like, it is mind-boggling to see, what the 5200 is. And this is kind of like the first vestiges of really satisfying the sports game enthusiasts and everything. I can see where this is kind of like a little chess game for somebody who's really into sports and everything. Me, like I said, I just love to play them personally. I love to watch them, but I kind of had to reach out on these games because again, I'm not a big I'm not super big. I feel so guilty right now.
But you make a good point. Now, see, that I don't want to get too. I'm not trying to get political here in the gaming community, but to me, in my opinion, there's a difference between a gamer and a sports fan. And it looks like that the sports games that today they're trying to appeal to both, because now with today's sports games, especially with the analog sticks, you have to do so many, there's so many different options for maneuvers, spin plays, jumping over players now, things like that. All sorts of stuff. They're trying, like he said, I think a gamer gets bored by sports games because there's usually two plays in the game that always seem to work, right? And then you run for a touchdown or you hit a home run or something like that. They're trying to complicate that now, where you can set the computer to a difficulty now and or something like that. It just doesn't seem to work. Am I off?
No. I would say that's fairly accurate. I mean, every game's going to have its flaw, and gamers will exploit it. They will find it. I mean, you play something enough, I mean, you will find it. As far as, just visually, they're amazing. And not only that, but if you ever see two gamers really go at it, where they have like the competitions for like Madden 2017, watch their hands. It's unbelievable. It is. You see in this incredible amount of movement, and each one of these movements is setting up. It's basically like a physical code that it's almost like a mini program. You mini program the computer to do what you want it to do, and then you'll hike, and then it's on. I mean, will your play actually work out against the other guy? It's brilliant. I tell you the truth, watching people play sports games is amazing.
Oh, yeah, and that's the back half of, oh, yeah, you're right, and that's the back half of my argument. They've gone from appealing to sports fans to appealing to gamers because see, here's the downside of that. Now the sports fan cannot play the game because they don't understand those moves. The gamer understands those moves. So now it's sort of flip-flopped in the marketing aspect, and they're making more money because there's more gamers out there. It's interesting.
That is fascinating. That is absolutely fascinating.
That's how I look at it.
I love it. Well, it works for me.
Yeah.
What do you guys think, Glenn, Steve? What do you guys
Glenn,
think?
Steve, yeah.
No, I agree that my collection. I have a lot of consoles, but I only bought an Xbox 360 really for my son for the Kinect. But the new consoles, to me, they've lost something. It's more hype, it's more graphics than actual gameplay. That's what the big things with classic gamers. You're there for the gameplay. You're there for the eye-hand coordination. You don't get that in these new games. When I buy a game, it's something I'm going to keep and play again and again. These new games, they buy them, they turn them back at GameStop in a month, and they're done with it. That to me, it's not gaming. It's a simulation maybe, but it's not something that me personally I really get involved with. People say you get the PS4. I have no desire for it. I mean, it looks nice, but the playability, the skill to me is not there.
Right.
I've played a lot more baseball on video gaming than football, and I've actually, I got out the Move controllers with my father a couple of years ago on my PlayStation 3, and we played some baseball with that. And he's played college ball in the past. He's a much better baseball player than me, and it really came through with the Move controllers. He was, batting 1,000, and I was batting like 20% or something terrible. But yeah, we had some fun. I mean, some of these newer games have some unique ways of playing the game, and I enjoy that. So, but football, I've never really gotten into playing football on any of the consoles. I think it's just very complicated, and you got these thick manuals, and that's always been a put-off for me personally. But I do admit it's fun to watch others who are good at it really get into the game and enjoy it. So, I'm probably more of a viewer than a player when it comes to football.
Right on. What about you, Dave?
I'll be honest with you. The only sports, if you want to call it, that I used to like when I was a kid, it was fake. It was wrestling. We didn't necessarily know it was fake. We kind of thought something was going on fishy, but, that's mainly when we grew up. I mean, I'm a big guy, in high school, I guess grade 11, I was 275 pounds. So, I mean, wow. I was very good at hitting people and making them fall down. So I was kind of natural for football.
You were a bully.
No, not really. They attacked me first.
It's always the other guy's fault, right?
Of course, I'm the gentle giant. I didn't want to cause any trouble. But what can I do? It was 1984. It was gym class. They put me in this polyester getup. I was looking atrocious, and my job was just to hit the two guys in front of me, and I did it pretty good.
All right.
Yeah. British Bulldog. I don't know if you guys remember there used to be a game called British Bulldog. I was a natural for that. Usually the last one standing with a couple of guys around my neck, a couple of guys around my legs. But
that's funny.
Yeah. Well, I used to have some American friends back in 2002, I think, during the PlayStation days. And I think we had that game. I used to play with them Madden in 2002. And, football is very big in the States, right? So both of my American friends, actually played, high school football and stuff. But believe it or not, my friend could not understand how I kept beating him. And I was just button mashing. I didn't even know what I was doing.
That's what I do at work. I just mash buttons until I get the desired result. So it works out good for, mashing buttons works great.
And then the plane takes off, the plane lands.
So turbulence is like false news. You're just pushing buttons and making the plane bounce. See how it is.
Yeah, I'm just trying to cover up for my own incompetence here. But
excuse us, folks. We're heading into turbulence when you're just pushing buttons like, Liberace on the piano.
Yeah,
I know this thing works. I got it. No.
It seems that I watched a movie with Denzel Washington in it once. He was a pilot, and he flew like you.
Oh, no. You fly like that, you're doing prison time. But in fact, I've never seen the movie. I know everybody's like, you haven't seen that movie? I was like, I don't think I want to watch it. But maybe one of these days I'll work my way up to it. But unlike David, doing like team sports and stuff like that, I was really good at. And this is kind of ironic because the sports games that I really gravitated towards were the games that you kind of you're kind of by yourself. I was an avid skier. I'd been skiing since I was 3 years old, and I skied for well over 30 years. My knees like to communicate that fact to me every once in a while. But I was, in fact, when I was a teenager, getting towards 18, 19 years old, there was some talk with the family. Do I want to go? Do I actually want to pursue this as a profession? But I never did. I just love to ski. I wasn't really that competitive with skiing. However, the Activision skiing game for the Atari 2600, I played that all the time. I love that. So this kind of comes around where the sports that I was good at, I actually would play on for video games.
Yeah, I loved the game. What was it, decathlon? Didn't that have the Olympic or the skiing event in it for 5200? I love that part. When you go down the slalom. Or down the hill and do the jump. Yeah. Oh, fun.
Yep. I gotta. In fact, that's one we're going to be covering and everything at a later time. So, yeah, that's going to be fun when we get into the Activision stuff and I get to replay all that stuff.
River Raid, man, their best game, River Raid.
Oh, that game, that and Star Command. Star Master.
I've been hearing this other guy talk about his realistic home video football game. Well, I play real football, and I also play the new Atari RealSports football. And I love it, because I love real passing, real kicking, and especially sacking the quarterback all by myself. And who you going to listen to? Some guy who just talks football? Or a nice guy like me who plays it?
New RealSports football, one in a series, only from Atari.
Well, you know what? Here we go. Today's games are RealSports football and RealSports soccer. I went ahead and covered RealSports football. The publisher was Atari. The year was 1982. This is model number CX5207. So this was in the original lineup for the 5200. The genre, of course, it's going to be sports, and the developer was Jim, and I hope I'm not butchering this. Developer was Jim Hoyther.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Thank you. The description for this thing is, if everybody remembers the Atari 2600 version of football, it left a lot to be desired. Some people love it, and I understand why, because it is a very simple game. But for people who love sports and people who wanted more out of it, this was one of the first attempts to bring a full-featured American football video game to the home video game market, and something that would satisfy the enthusiasts of sports games. Okay, so gameplay. Well, it's football. Yay! So, and I will say... I will say American football, because I do have friends from overseas, and they're like, football? That's not football. This is football. So to satisfy my friends, this is American football. It's plain and simple. So anyways, Intellivision had just come out with a football game with more features than that of the original 2600. It was Atari's turn to turn up the basically up the ante on everything. And since the 5200 had a keyboard on its controller, the powers that be decided that the Atari 5200 football game would have more features, and those features would be accessed through the multiple combinations that were available on those controllers. The playbook contains all the offensive and defensive plays of Atari RealSports football. It also summarizes some essential information, but it only gives a bird's eye view of the game. To get the most out of Atari footballs, you got to study the manual, and then you kind of got to go into the plays and everything. The one-player version. You play offense all the time. The computer plays defense. This is basically just for you to practice and everything else and kind of get used to the controls of the game. You got to call up, and this is kind of a pain because I was playing a little bit of this. You have to plug in both controllers, and you set yourself up for your offensive play, and then you got to set up the computer for the defensive play. The computer will make the players move, but it's kind of like it's using its own little AI, which is it's not too bad. So the 2-player version, which is, in my opinion, the preferable way to play this, each person calls up a play and controls the movement of the odd-colored player with the joystick. Offense picks its play in a 2-step process. You select a number from 1 through 3 in response to the pick formation cue on the scoreboard. You select another number, 1 through 6, in response to the pick the play cue. Defense selects its play by pressing one of the numbers, 1 through 6, in response to the pick play cue on the scoreboard. You see how complex this is getting? It ramps up complexity very quickly on this. Okay, so then you've got different formations and everything else. For a tight line defense against the up-the-middle run and medium-range pass plays, that'd be a number 1. For number 2, for a wide defense that provides a good rush and coverage against the medium-range pass. For wide line defense, for 5-man line, because you only have, I'm looking at it right now, 6 guys on each side. So you have different plays and for offense and defense, and they kind of combine the two. It's one of those things where it's a limitation of the game because of how much memory and everything else. So there's a few other things that are going on here, and this is right out of the manual. There are no 2-minute warnings and no legal timeouts. I mean, the timeout is, you can hit pause, but the game pauses between plays anyway. So if you want to start like a 30-second counter on your iPhone while you're, that you can. So you can make it as realistic as possible. If you want halftime entertainment and refreshments, you're just going to have to hit pause again. But there's a lot of really good little things here. Like, you can get a safety on this game. You can kick field goals, and depending on how far out you are, the percentages will adjust to how close or how far away from the goalposts you are. Okay, so the fire buttons, your controllers. Fire buttons. Functions of the fire buttons are, the upper one, it's to pass to receiver 2. The lower one, it's to pass to receiver 1. To kick a punt. To hike the ball early. To free up the defense control player before the snap. To transfer joystick control. On offense, to the intended receiver of a pass while the ball is in mid-flight. On defense, to the player closest to the ball carrier. After the ball carrier has crossed the line of scrimmage, as soon as a pass is completed, as soon as a pass is intercepted, which is what happened to me a lot. I'll get to that here in just a little bit. There's a lot that's going on, and it is taking full advantage of the complexity of these controllers. Offensive plays. To maintain correct screen direction in calling the plays, in fact, I think it was originally a poster that you would hold up one way if you were home, another way, and basically 180 degrees opposite from where you were for the visiting team. Again, with my setup that I bought off of eBay, it actually comes with 2 separate playbooks, so you don't have to share the poster and flipping it up and down. So anyways, this game was really an amazing leap in programming technology from the 2600. You got runs, you got screen passes, you have different types of runs. You can punt. You can, you can fake a field goal in this thing, a Seattle Seahawks favorite.
Right.
But there is an amazing amount of complexity that you are able to take advantage of. With defensive plays, you can defend yourself against the long pass, the blitz, the short pass, the punts, all that good stuff. So helpful hints on the actual passing. Time the release of the ball to match up with the arrival of your intended receiver of one of the cut points in his pattern. So again, this is going to require some study. After the receiver completes his pattern, the defensive safety has a greater chance of intercepting. Again, this is what happened most of the time with me when I was playing with my buddy Ryan. we'll talk about if your line of scrimmage is, we'll talk about field goals here. If the line of scrimmage is 1 yard or less, you have a 99% chance of making that field goal. And then it goes on 2 to 5 yards, 6 to 13 yards, 14 to 17 yards, and it just keeps on going down. So the probabilities actually get lower as you're further away. If you're more than 50 yards away, you have 0 chance. But from 46 to 49 yards, you have a 31% chance. 42 to 45, 52. So it's graduated, and it kind of adds an element of randomness and an element of excitement to kicking that field goal. So let's go ahead, since we're going to assume that our studio audience actually knows how football is played and everything else. Let's move on to the legacy of this. It's pretty safe to say that the legacy of football is still going strong, with successes early on with Tecmo Bowl for the NES, all the way to the current Madden 2007 by EA Sports. The desire to have a fully realized game at home has always been very strong. The foundation laid by Mattel and Atari obviously trailblazed this genre. So where can you get this thing? I got mine brand new, sealed in the box, eBay. I think I paid $10. That was a while back. Right now, I think everybody is scrambling for all the old retro stuff. Prices are going to vary. You can either get it loose, just the bare cartridge. But if I were to give a recommendation, I am going to say spend the money and get a complete set with all the manuals and everything else. If you actually want to play this game and play it well, you're going to need all the literature you can to actually play this game to its full potential. So, my review of the game. I'm going to admit here, again, I'm not a big fan of sports games. I'd rather watch them or play them. But I figured I'd give this one a really good try since, I'm one of the hosts of the Atari 5200 podcast, and this is one of the Atari 5200 games original to the line. One thing is for sure, sports games, unless it's a game like skiing or some other singular game, are to be played with 2 people. And this is true. I tried single-player mode on this, and it's about as much fun as mowing the hillside next to my house. It's tedious and unfulfilling in the greatest of degrees. So I called my best friend and fellow retro gaming enthusiast Ryan to come on over and to help me out on this one. So the game is actually a lot of fun if you like football and you're playing against an equally skilled opponent. We had a few adult beverages in the process, and we had an absolute blast playing this. Ryan, as a coder and gamer himself, he eventually absolutely crushed me on this. It was a complete blowout, but we had fun, and I think that's what games are for, to have fun. It was kind of fun to kind of feel out the game and see how Atari was trying to add all this complexity and everything and depth to its sports line. The goal was to up the ante against Intellivision, and I think the programmers took every opportunity to put these controllers to good use, even to the point of over-complexity. Is this a game for everyone? I'm going to say no. But if you're a sports fan, if you're a football fan and you would like to have at least one sports game in your stable, this is a good one to have. Ryan, he just kept on intercepting the interception. I was slaughtered, but I had never had so much fun. Every once in a while my daughter would just come in and just take a peek and, "How you doing, Dad?" Horribly. She goes, "Oh, that's great, Dad," and leave. So,
so Bob, I got a question for you.
Yes.
I'm kind of into the controls, the controller. Is it analog or is it pretty much a digital type experience?
You know what, Steve? Thanks for asking that. Yes and no. It's if you use the native controllers, it kind of is a digital. You want to move this way, you push the controller in the direction you want to go, and the guy starts running. Now, your defensive guys will actually run a little bit faster than the offensive guys, and this was to kind of mix things up so you wouldn't just have one guy catch the ball and have a runaway, basically have your guy just completely blitz right down the field and make a touchdown. They wanted to give some sort of competitive advantage to the defensive guys, so you could actually play and it would feel like football. So that was kind of a really cool. It was a really cool feature that they programmed into it. Now, we always talk about the trackball controllers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another game that is fantastic to play with the trackball. Yes,
I did not know this.
In fact, Atari went so far to really to really show that this game was trackball compatible. They actually have it printed on the back and on the top flap of the box itself. So it'll say trackball compatible, and it really is. It is a true trackball compatible game. And it's kind of fun because you have to, you're just flipping and spinning that ball as fast as you can to try to run and try to get away and everything. It added another element to it. It really did. It added to the game, which was, I loved it. It was great. Yeah,
and baseball's also compatible with the trackball as well, and I think soccer is also.
Yeah, I think they wanted to. Here was the thing. I mean, accessories always bring in a little bit more cash into the coffers of the company that's producing the game machines, and I think they wanted to have games that would actually be compatible with those accessories. I can tell you right now, when we get to our Defender episode, Defender is, no matter what it says on the box of the trackball controller, Defender is not a game you want to play. In fact, it's almost
absolutely
impossible.
Not. No way.
It's completely impossible to play that game. This one, it is, and I would, again, highly suggest playing it with the trackball. It's a lot of fun. Not a lot of reviews for this game online. Video Game Critic, of course, always has something. They gave it a D. And one of the things that they talk about here is this. They love RealSports Baseball, and I can't wait to get to that one and play around with it. To them, this was a major disappointment. The graphics aren't bad. Again, I agree with that. The side-scrolling field has hash marks, line numbers. They really made the effort to really make it look like a football field. What else did they talk about here? The main flaw with this game, in fact, the way that the Video Game Critic sees it, main flaw with this game is that the players are so slow. I don't know if I think that was purposely done to kind of give you a feel of everybody running around, and there's kind of a little bit of a, kind of a fog of war type thing with football where everybody's running around. You're on the chessboard. You're trying to figure out the play, and there's a little bit of randomness to it. I think that was one of the things that they were trying to go for. These guys didn't like it. I kind of found it, I understood what they were doing here, so I kind of went with it.
Also, you got to remember back in the day, you had these football games with little figures and the board would rattle and they would move real slow, but it was an entertaining experience, and I think a lot of people liked that way of playing football, and this game kind of is reminiscent of that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it does show that as you're playing it. It actually is. It's kind of, I find it kind of cool. Some people, I could see where some people might not exactly really warm up to it. Let's see, if your receiver does break away from the pack, he'll be running a long time. That's one of the things that they complained about. And then you talk about how RealSports Football does have a few noteworthy features. You can call an audible at the line of scrimmage. You can kick field goals, punt. It's actually possible to block kicks, which Ryan did. I don't know how in the heck. He had never played this game before, and he just absolutely mastered this thing. And I'm like, I'm dying here. So... there, as they say, still its overall sluggishness forces the game to take a backseat to the primitive but far more exciting 2600 version. I don't exactly agree with that either. But the other thing is, they're talking about a long time. You actually have two options with this game. You can play a full hour. You can play the full 15 minutes per quarter, or you could play a short game, where it's only 6 minutes per quarter. So there's a lot of features to this game, and if it actually went, I think they took the time and they made the effort to try to make this appeal to a very wide audience. So anyways, I believe that if you want to get the full fun factor out of this game, it has to be played with two people. The game is somewhat sluggish, but it kind of plays like I said before, and it plays into the whole fog of war thing where guys are running around and trying to figure out the play, as you're playing it on the field and as it would happen in the real game. If you're looking for speedy breakaways, this is not your game. You basically have to do the long pass to pull off something like that. But it seems that the emphasis on this game was on the strategy of football more than exciting gameplay. So here are some ratings that I kind of came up with. So graphics, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. You can tell the players are the players. They're very blocky, but they actually made a really good effort to animate them and to make them look like football players. Field is...
I would agree.
Yeah.
50% better than Atari 2600. I'd say at least 50% better.
Oh, totally. The field is an actual field. It's the full gridiron. You got hash marks. In fact, I'm staring at it right now as it kind of scrolls through the colors for its screensaver here. But it's an actual field. It's cool to see, and it kind of makes you want to play. Think your plays out as a 100-yard field and everything else that would happen within that field of play. There's down flags. You can see, this is third down. There's a little flag at the very top, and it does give you a lot of information towards the very top. So as far as graphics are concerned, it's blocky. It's pretty cool, and I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. They did a fairly good job on this. Sound and music, I'm going to give it 7 out of 10. There's no music, but it's got some good sound effects. You got the whistle, where the ref would blow the whistle for a down. You got the crowd cheering when you make a touchdown play. It's cool, and they really, and again, this is the pokey chip, really shining on this. They took full advantage of that pokey chip to really bring out the sounds and everything for this. So I give it a 7 out of 10. Gameplay. This was a tough one for me. It was like, if you're really into this, you're probably going to think that the gameplay is probably maybe an 8, maybe even a 9 out of 10 on this thing. I kind of split the difference. I did find it a little sluggish and everything else. However, I'm going to give it 6 out of 10. It is a bit sluggish, and calling the plays, it's kind of tedious, but I think if you really got into this, memorized which buttons brought up which plays and actions and everything else, this could really be a blast. And for some weird reason, I love the whole field goal probability chart. I just love that aspect of this game. I think it really adds to it, especially like, a fake field goal. Stuff, those little details and features really set this thing apart. Presentation, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. The manual is very detailed. The artwork is kind of cool. It's your typical 5200 silver box from Atari. I think true enthusiasts will really enjoy studying the manual and working with the plays. It would be fun to see two really good players who really took the time to really learn this game, go head-to-head, and see what the overall potential of this game would be. So overall, I'm just going to round the numbers up. If you want to do the math, you can, but I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, that sounds like a fair score.
Thank you. Pete, I was going to say, Pete, you've played this game. How do you feel about it?
Well, the best part about this game is that you also failed to mention one of the sound effects, which you should be very familiar with and haunts your dreams. That's the interception sound effect, which startles the heck out of anybody. You could use it as door, doorbell.
Yes.
That startling sound it makes.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's one of the best sound effects for an interception. But, the game is actually pretty cool. I mean, at least for me, I finally look at the Atari 5200 game. Now, I'm unlike other gamers. I don't really look at the sound effects or the quality of the gameplay. I look at like how interested I am in it. It could have the most basic graphics, and I could just be totally into it, and I'll consider it like a 9 out of 10, game, that sort of thing. So for me, Atari 5200 football, it brought my brother and I together a lot to play, and he would whoop my butt a lot. But, using the playbooks, learning football from my brother, I mean, it sort of has a lot of nostalgia for me. So I really like this game, the blue and the red playbooks. It was so intriguing. I mean, you look at like games, I don't mean to sidetrack here, but, I was just saying, I know you guys have talked about Space Invaders. I mean, what a complicated game that is for a system from 1982, and then they have this on top of that. It's just like these guys were really, I hope everybody got raises before everybody got laid off, because it was, this is... this is quite a game. I mean, if you look at modern day games today, yeah, you got your playbooks up on the screen. They pop up on the screen after the next play, after the play is over and all that stuff. This was like ahead of its time.
I was going to say, Pete, I think you're touching on something here, and this is something I'm just realizing right now. Mr. Hoyther, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, but I'm going to tell you right now, I think he was a fan, because he had to have been a fan of football, because this game is crafted in a manner that is trying to capture the complexity and yet the pure essence of football. There's a lot going on in this code. This is programmed by a fan.
He ran out of room. There's no penalties. Do you realize that? There's no penalties.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
He ran out of room.
Yep.
He's like play at your own risk. It's like backyard football.
Yeah.
Everybody, we barely ever punted. We just went for it on fourth down. We were throwing bombs, down, left, and right. That was the thing about this game. So actually, in a weird way, it sort of brought my family together. I know it sounds corny, but that's the truth.
Have you played Atari today?
We're reviewing games that are 35, 40 years old. Don't talk to us about corny, okay? So
Yeah, right, exactly. We're all in a retro land over here, which is a good land to be in.
It's a great land to be in. But again, this kind of stems back to one of the things that we always talk about, which is how this brings families and people together. This is great stuff.
Yeah, it brought my family together, and my dad would come in and watch us play. He didn't, he didn't know how to play the game, but he would watch us, after dinner and just spend time with us. It really was like everybody was interested because it was so complex. We were so used to, the 2600 at my cousin's house, before, like I said, which was the influence of asking my mom for a system for Christmas, and I ended up with the 5200. So it was like so cool. Wow, this game has books. Wow, this game actually has actual plays. Wow, I can kick a field goal. Wow, I can do this and that, just like the real game. And it was so much fun. And simply for me, guys, I'm a 9 out of 10 when it comes to this game, just for the fact of what it did for me, for nostalgia-wise, and being a big retro fan. I think that counts for something.
Oh, that totally counts. In fact, I'm so glad we brought you on the show for this, because that's exactly what we were going for, which was, I kind of felt guilty that I wasn't exactly the best, because of my bias against sports games for the most part. I wanted somebody who loves sports games, and this is exactly what we want the audience to hear, that somebody who loves sports games, here it is, folks, right here. Pete loves it, 9 out of 10.
I'd rather play the Atari 5200 version of football than NCAA, 2K17 any day.
Yep.
Any day. What do you guys think? What's your guys' opinion? Glenn, Steve, Dave?
Well, this is obviously a Pete-approved game.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? We should put this game back on sale at the regular stores. We'll get all the old stock 5200 games from Venezuela. We'll put them up on there. Put them up on the shelf.
After custom slashes all the boxes.
Yeah. And we'll put.
I just raised the eBay price by $3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm going to be in a bidding war with somebody to get this game. I don't even have it, so.
And we'll just put a big stamp on it. Pete
I'm going
Spivak
straight
approved.
to eBay right now.
Oh, goodness. Okay,
Anyway.
well, I was going to say, and that's football. That is Real Sports Football for the Atari 5200.
Well, I just wanted to say one thing. I think what's one of the quintessential things about football is that it's like a strategy game. You know,
Yes.
it's not just a physical game. It's also like mental. There's a lot of strategy there, and because if you take a look at football, you know, sometimes they set up. They're actually the setup takes longer than the actual plays themselves, right? So
Yeah.
and I think if you're really like a person who likes that strategy, trying to outwit your opponent and trying different moves and stuff like that, you know what? This game would be excellent. You know, it's besides the fact it's football. I mean, just the fact that football is a strategy game by nature. I mean, if you're really into that, I can see people like when I told you when I was playing Madden 2002 with my button mashing skills. Hey, it was still a lot of fun. It was still a lot of fun to try different strategies, different plays, and see how they would end up.
I think this game, you know, to Captain Bob's point, I think this game was actually very, very important for the 5200 being the graphics upgrade from the 2600. That game helped set it apart for the sports fans.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you know what? And going back to what David just said, strategy. It is. It takes more time to set up the play than it does to actually run the play. In fact, Ryan, my buddy Ryan, is a huge fan of football. He also gets into the probabilities with like fantasy football and everything else. He is, in fact, sometimes what he does, he'll set up 2 televisions in his living room. One will have the home game, the Seahawks game on. The other one has what is it? I think it's
Red
Direct
Zone.
TV. Yeah, Red Zone. He'll have Red Zone on, and he'll be there with his computer, and he'll sit there with his stats and everything else for fantasy football, and it's like this orchestra that's going on in the living room, and I'm like, what? This is almost like an overload. And he looks at me and he goes, no, there's no overload. If you take the average time that there's actually any action going on a football field, there's approximately 12 minutes of action in a 2-hour game. And he goes, I need this to keep myself entertained. And I was like, wow, you're a big geek on this. But it just goes to show you that, yeah, sometimes setting up the play, or I should say almost all the time, setting up that play is everything compared to actually running it. Running it takes a few seconds off the clock, but setting up that play actually it's very complex.
It is indeed.
Okay, so I guess we'll go off now to the second game.
If you think ColecoVision plays all Atari cartridges... You mean it can't? Here's Pac-Man on ColecoVision. But here's Pac-Man on the Atari 5200 Super System. Now you're talking. And it doesn't work on ColecoVision. But won't Jungle Hunt? Not with real arcade graphics. Ms. Pac-Man? This Ms. plays only on the Atari 5200 Super System. And now there's an adapter. For 2600 games? Nearly 300 2600 games. Super! System, now with a $30 rebate and Pac-Man from Atari.
All right, so now we're going to go on to the game review number 2. The name of the game is Soccer, or re-released as RealSports Soccer. The publisher is Atari Inc. The original soccer game came out for the 5200 in 1982 and then was rebranded as RealSports Soccer in 1983. The model number was CX5213, the genre is sports. The developer was John Sagers at Atari Inc. And here's a little bit of a description. Hi, soccer fans. Here's Atari's new lifelike three-dimensional soccer with the most exciting games you'll ever experience outside a stadium. Beat the computer, trounce the visiting team, and cheer from the stands. I wish the sound effect was there, but yeah, cheer from the stands as the computer plays itself in autoplay mode. Thank you. Halves last from 5 to 45 minutes, and there are 4 skill levels. Now, Atari 5200 Real Sports Soccer can be played by two players, one player against the computer, or the computer itself in autoplay. Single-player games and autoplay games can be played at a skill level from beginner to expert. Again, halves can last from 5 to 45 minutes long. Default setting is a two-player game with 5-minute halves. These settings can be changed. Now, the computer has different play levels. So in the beginning, if you pick beginning play level, the computer team walks through games with respond slowly, teamwork is poor, ball control is loose. In one-player games, balls are easy to intercept and pass. The goals are easy to penetrate. Good level for practicing ball control, kick strategy with a minimum of opposition. Then when you work yourself up to novice, the computer teams are more energetic. Teamwork is better. Ball control is tighter. And interceptions are more difficult. Goalies are more alert. Then we go up to intermediate. The computer gives you plenty of trouble in one-player games at this level. Games are fast, teamwork is good, and the balls are hard to intercept. Unless you're an experienced player, you'll have trouble holding onto the ball, let alone scoring. Autoplay games are exciting at this level. And once you get to the top of the mountain, you're the expert. World Cup soccer. The computer team would even give Pele trouble. Recommended for expert Atari 5200 Real Sports Soccer players and spectators. Okay, well, the object of the game. Your object is to score points by maneuvering the ball past your opponents into their goal. You score 1 point for each goal. The team with the highest number of points at the end of the game wins. Now, teams. Each team has 5 players, four fielders, and a goalkeeper. The home team wears blue shirts and the visitors wear red. The team in possession of the ball is on the offensive or the attacking team. At the start of the game, the visitors are on the offensive and the home team are defenders. The computer controls all goalie moves. You control one fielder at a time while the computer controls the other 3. Now, using the 5200 controllers, when your team is on the offensive, you control the ball carrier. That's the fielder with the ball. In defensive play, the computer selects the fielder. You can switch between another fielder by pressing one of the switch player keys on the controller keypad. The controlled player is identified by his bright shirt. Now, there is a referee in the game, which you will never see. But he's there, and you'll hear his whistle more than you want. As referee, the computer blows the whistle to call penalties, signals the end of the first half, and places the ball for kickoffs and penalty plays. The clock, as soon as you start a game, the clock at the top of the television screen begins counting down in seconds at the end of the first half. At the end of the first half, it resets and counts down for the second half. There is no timeout between halves. Now, at the start of the first half, the ball is placed in the center spot on the halfway line. The home team, the blue shirts, are on the left side of the line, and the visitors' red shirts are on the right. The visitors' center starts the play by kicking the ball from the center spot. The center may kick the ball to a teammate or move it forward to the goal himself. You can intercept the ball as soon as it's kicked off the center spot, except during the penalty plays such as throw-ins, goal kick, and corner kick. Fielders never touch the ball with their hands. The ball is caught, kicked, and dribbled with the feet. Players may also bounce the ball off their heads. This is a move I have not been able to get done once, I have to tell you. Scoring. To score a point, a fielder must kick the ball past the goalie into the goal. The goalie defends the goal by catching or trapping the ball and kicking it upfield to a teammate. When the goal is scored, the ball is returned to the center spot, and the team that did not score kicks off. You may notice that you can high kick your ball over the height of the net and still gain a point. Looks like there was a little glitch in the game that wasn't ironed out before the game hit retail. Because I did notice a few times I would do a high kick, and that kick would just fly right over the whole net itself, but I would get a point. Now, second half. In the second half, teams are reversed. Home team fielders take the positions on the right. Visitors take the positions on the left side. This time, the home team kicks off. Now, there's penalty plays in this game. There are 3 out-of-bound penalty plays for the Atari 5200 Real Sports Soccer. And you're going to do them a lot because you're going to get that ball out of bounds all the time. Okay, so we got a throw in. we got the throw-in. So when one team dribbles or kicks the ball over the sideline, the other team throws it back into the play at the point where it went out of bounds. The ball may be intercepted as soon as it's thrown in. The computer positions a fielder for the throw-in. You trigger the throw-in and control the direction of the force of the throw with your 5200 controller. You've got the goal kick. When the attacking team maneuvers the ball over the defending team's goal line, outside the goal, the ball is placed in front of the goal and the goalie kicks it upfield. Either team can intercept the ball when the kick is completed. The computer completely controls the goal kick penalty play in games. And you have the corner kick. If the defending team moves the ball over its own goal line, the ball is placed in the corner near the goal and a member of the attacking team kicks it upfield to a teammate. Either team can intercept the ball when the kick is completed. The computer positions your fielder. You set the height of the kick, direct the ball, and trigger the kick. Let's take a look at an overview of the keypad. The keypad, the numbers 1, 2, and 3 refer to low kick, medium kick, and high kick. In the middle, the 6 middle buttons are for switching the player. So Atari has given you 6 different buttons in the middle of the overlay to use to switch players. So your finger will almost be in the right spot all the time when you want to switch players. And then the last 3 buttons on the bottom, one is to select an option. The one in the middle is a ground kick, and the other one is a change option. So you can use, I believe you use the star to select the option, and you use the hashtag to change the option. But the 0 is ground kick. Now, I'll explain that a little bit more now in detail. Now, both bottom buttons are used for ground kicks. So they just do one function. So remember, on your Atari 5200 controller, you've got 4 fire buttons. You've got 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. So the ones on the bottom in this game only do ground kicks. Now the ones on the top are for lofted or into the air kicks. They can be used for throw-ins and can be set to a various different kick types, 4 choices. So what's interesting is that these top buttons can be programmed. Actually, back all this long ago, back in 82, 83, the Atari programmers already, when you talk about advancement in gameplay and choices, they made, your top fire buttons as programmable. So now, if you don't select what we call a kick key for the top fire buttons, if you don't program what kind of kick you want it to do, it'll default to the medium-high ball when you press the red button. Okay, so as I was talking about, the top fire buttons or the top kick buttons are programmable. So you can program them with 4 different kind of kicks. So there's a low kick, which is a low, short kick, good for passes, and goal kicks at close range. You can choose medium kick, medium height kick for longer passes, and goal kicks. There's a high kick, good for long distances, lofts the ball high into the air and covers a lot of ground. And then you have the ground kick. It sets it to ground kick, duplicating the function of the bottom red controller button. Now remember, once you have set the upper kick key, it remains set until another key type is chosen or pressed. Now let's talk about the beauty of the Atari 5200 controller. It really shines in this game. The control stick rotates a total of 360 degrees for maximum maneuverability. Now, what's great about the 5200 controller, because it's got the potentiometers inside that controller, it knows how far in one direction you move the joystick. So fielders can actually move at 3 speeds. They can walk, they can run, and they can run fast. The further from the center you move the control stick, the faster they move. Center the control stick to stop, the player stops moving. So here is a game in which the regular 5200 controller is, in my opinion, probably the best option to play this game.
Just to interrupt for a moment, David, Did you try it with the trackball?
Yes, I did.
Ooh, and how was it?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I'll pick the original controller over the trackball for these reasons. One, because the controller has the potentiometers, once you point it in the direction and how far away from the center you want it, it's easy to keep a speed up. It's
Gotcha.
fluid. It's fluid. The problem with the trackball is the trackball, you need to constantly be rolling that ball.
Yeah.
Okay? And the thing is, I just found for me, with the Atari 5200 controller, it was like controlling a mouse, a mouse on a computer. I could have the exact pinpoint accuracy where I want that guy to go. While with the trackball, I'm rolling it to the right, and rolling right up, then roll right left, and
yeah, your accuracy can kind of vary.
Yeah, but it is fully playable with the trackball. It's just that, in my opinion, this is a game where the original controller was meant for this game.
Okay.
So now ball control. A fielder traps the ball when he touches it. So basically in this game, as soon as your player contacts with the ball then basically attaches to you. So it's not like once you connect with the ball, you have to worry about the ball accidentally rolling away from you. Once it attaches to you, it's stuck to you. So once you've got the ball, the manual calls it dribbling. So you push the control stick in the direction of the goal to dribble the ball down the field. The further you push the control stick, the faster the ball carrier goes. That's not all there is. However, you can use evasive tactics to keep opponents from tackling or intercepting the ball. A few offensive maneuvers are zigzagging down the field, varying the pace, switching directions suddenly, passing the ball to a teammate, or outdistancing a tackle. So basically, as when your player just comes in contact with the ball sort of gets glued to you. But as you're moving down the field with that ball, another player can come and sort of knock it away from you. So as I was saying, intercepting, you can intercept by trapping a kicked ball or stealing a dribbled ball. To steal a ball, run your fielder straight into the ball carrier. Don't go around him. Trap the ball, it attaches to yourself, and dribble it toward your goal or pass it to your own teammate. Now, passing is an effective way to move the ball downfield and maintain control. To pass the ball, move the control stick in the direction of your receiver and press the appropriate red kick button. Now, kicking. Move the control stick in the direction you want the ball to go and press the red kick button. A ground kick is good for short distance passing, kickoffs, and some goal kicks. Use a lofted kick for long distance passing and most goal kicks. The faster your fielder moves when he kicks the ball, the further the ball goes. Also, with the throw-in, using the controller stick, direct the ball to a teammate, press the top red buttons to make the throw. The further from the center you move the control stick, the more force the throw, and the further the ball goes. And then lastly, corner kick. Choose the appropriate kick. Program the appropriate kick that you want to use for the kick key. Using the control stick, direct the ball to a teammate, press the top red button to make the kick. Caution, be careful not to kick the ball out of bounds on a corner kick. Listed on this game, this is a trackball compatible game. And Atari 5200 RealSports Soccer offers a trackball option. For 2 players, you can use 2 trackballs or a 5200 controller and a trackball. Now, move the trackball with your hand. Fielders move in any direction that you move the trackball. The faster you spin the trackball, the faster they go. Press the red buttons to kick the ball. Now, let's do a few game tips. Kicking a goal. A straight kick into the goal will almost always be blocked by the goalie. Try to position your fielder for a diagonal kick. Ball carrier is centered to the goal and can kick the ball diagonally right or diagonally left into the goal. Normally, it is easier to score goals with lofted kicks. However, if the ball carrier is very close to the goal, he can often sneak the ball past the goalie with a short ground kick. Now, if we talk about passing, at the beginning and novice levels, you may not be able to pass the ball directly to your receiver. In that case, lay the ball in his path, close enough for him to overtake it and trap it before the opponents can intercept. At intermediate and expert levels, pass the ball frequently to prevent interceptions and maintain control of the ball. Now, defending your goal. When the attackers are close to your goal, try to intercept the ball and pass it to your goalie. He'll kick it upfield and move the play away from the goal. Make the pass at close range with a short ground kick. But be careful not to penetrate the goal and score a point for your opponents. I was not able to do it myself, but according to the manual, there's a wraparound. When your team is defending, you can move your fielder off the side of the screen and wrap around to the opposite side. This may put your fielder in a better position to intercept the ball. I myself was not able to pull this off. Okay, so some legacy. This game was also available on the Atari 2600. Other than that, I don't think this game was ported anywhere else. This is an Atari 5200 game. It was the Atari 5200 only. Now, I found at Best Electronics you can buy it $10 loose or $15 boxed. I was not able to find it at B&C Computer Visions, wasn't available. eBay loose cart was $5.99, but complete for $7.50, and I found one new for $17.95, but you could find cheaper. But as Bob was saying, just with football, with the soccer, although it's not as important as the football you really need complete. You can kind of get away with it in soccer, but at least if you can still get the overlays, a couple of set of overlays, they do help a bit. Okay, so now let's get to my review. Graphics. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's a big improvement over the 2600 version. The field looks good with adequate detail, ground markings, goal nets, corner markers at the ends of the field. And the field is in a trapezoid shape, giving you that pseudo 3D perspective, which the 2600 version is just flat. It's just like a square. Players are easier to tell apart, and the field is much bigger in size as compared to the Atari 2600 version. It's easy to tell that you're on a soccer field. It's easy to identify what players are on what teams. And the 5200 version has multicolored players, while on the 2600 the players are bigger but monocolor. Interesting way they did the ball, as it looks like a soccer ball, but it's actually missing its black spots, and what you see is only the white spots. But it's still easy to recognize that it's a soccer ball, and when we talk about the Atari 2600 game, the ball was a square. So a great improvement there. The player who has the ball changes color, so you can tell who is controlling the ball at any one time. A blue player usually turns white when he has the ball. A red player sort of turns kind of pink from what I can tell on my LCD screen. So, you know what? We got to get back to tube TVs. I got to go find at least a 21-inch tube TV that can play these games the right way.
And what's sad is so many, when everybody went over to HD TV, people were leaving those tube TVs out on the sidewalk around the Seattle
I know.
area with the sign, "Free, take me." And I was like, gladly.
Yeah, I was going to say, those things should go for a lot pretty soon here. I mean, everybody's going to be needing those to play Ataris.
Yep, and it's hard to find the ones with the manual tuners. I mean, you can find more digital tuners, but the old, turn the knob, analog ones are the ones I always look for, and they're very hard to find.
Now, if I compare this to two competitors out there, Atari 5200 RealSports Soccer has much nicer looking players as compared to Intellivision's NASL Soccer. But the Inti version does have the crowd cheering sound effect, although all the players are one-color mono players. The only other game I could sort of see that could kind of compete with it at the time was Super Action Soccer for the ColecoVision, but that came out in 1984. Again, the players are, one color, but what's interesting about Super Action Soccer is that when the camera zooms in, there's quite a lot of detail. You can make out the players, the shirts, the shorts, the socks, the shoes, the hair color, dynamic movement as the goalie flies, goes flying to catch the ball. But again, that game came out quite a few years later from the Atari version. Now let's go talk about sound and music. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. The great whistle sound effect and the goalie tune when you make the goal. Love those. Love the goalie tune. The rest of the time, the players sound like they're walking on wood planks. Too bad they didn't have crowd.
True.
Yeah, too bad they didn't have crowd cheering static sound like the 2600 version. However, the 5200 version had the goal music, which is nice when you make a goal. Gameplay, I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10. It has most of the rules of soccer, albeit a bit on the slow side. Not as fast-paced as the 2600 version, but you have to remember the field is much bigger in the 5200 version, and the 5200 version has goalies, which the 2600 version does not. Also, an upgrade from the 2600 6 players The 5200 has 10 players. Now, presentation. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10.
Oh,
go ahead.
Don't forget the analog. The analog controllability is better than the 2600.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
There you go, right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Got to factor that in.
That's right. So now, presentation. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Now, there were 2 boxes. I think the earlier box just says soccer, but the second version of the box has the RealSports name, branding, and the picture is much more color in it. A much more attractive box, in my opinion. The manual is colorful, full of diagrams or screenshots that help visualize what the instructions are trying to tell you. So I'm going to give this game a 7.25 out of 10. And because it's Atari 5200, it gets an 8 out of 10.
I like it.
Yeah, so live with that in television and ColecoVision.
Firing this thing up and taking a look at it, it's fun to play. It actually is really fun to play. And the 3D aspect of this thing really, it's beautiful. It's a beautifully rendered game. The blocky 8-bitness of this game.
Yeah.
This is full advantage, and I think it really is a great addition if you love sports games.
Now, again, I think that the optimal way to play this is 2-player.
Yeah.
Sports games are somehow meant to be 2-player. I don't know. That's just my feelings about it.
See, I think this is one of the disadvantages with sports games. When I was growing up, my brother is actually 8 years younger than me, so playing with other people was a very I lived out in the middle of nowhere. I grew up out in the middle of nowhere. So trying to, have friends over was, they had to go, through the snow, uphill both ways, to get to my house, that type of thing. So I think that kind of soured me on the 2-player games. But like I said, when I was playing with Ryan, we were having a blast with these things. I mean, everybody was having a great time all around. You got to play these games two-person.
Yeah,
it's got to be a
that
two-person
That just shows you the quality of the game all the way back in 82, 83, 84. 30 years plus, still fun to play.
And again, we talk about the legacy of these games, EA Sports coming into it all, and just these amazing. I mean, they're able to cram every stat of every player into these games. There's a little bit of randomness to this game, and I do like those aspects that you brought up. I love the field. The soccer ball looks like a soccer ball. In fact, I think they use the same way that the photons and Star Raiders. It kind of the pixels move, and it gives motion to that ball. And again, trying to bring as much of the game onto the program as possible. I really like this. I agree with your 8 out of 10.
Pete, do you have any thoughts on this game? Have you ever played it?
Oh, I've played it. Now, if you don't mind, I mean, with all due respect, if I could take a second here to sort of justify what I'm going to say here, because I have a little bit of a different take on the soccer game.
No problem.
You know how Bob said that you have to go back to 1982 when you're thinking about this game. You're talking about graphics. Well, let's also talk about the fact that soccer was still basically an unknown in the United States, unlike today where it's gaining momentum for the first time ever. So in Canada, maybe it's a little bit different, Dave. I don't know exactly how soccer is looked on. Obviously, hockey is, king of king sports, and it should be. I played hockey. I love it. But I think that this is where Atari may have gotten into a little bit of trouble, and I don't mean trouble in a bad way. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult, even today, to make a very good soccer game because it's a basic game no matter how many controls you give it. The ball's on the grass, and you have to kick it a certain way. It's just that simple. So there's not much you can really do with the sport of soccer to make it sort of an Atari 5200 game is much more different than the 2600 aside from the graphics.
That's right.
And the controllability, stuff like that, because it's the same storyline. Have ball, kick ball into net.
Have ball will travel.
Pretty much, exactly. It's like it's sort of like the caveman of sports. And so you have to rely on the graphics, basically, to make a good game, and that's where the Atari 5200 sort of stands out, again, in the early 80s from the Intellivision, the Colecos, and obviously 2600. But again, it's the same storyline, and it's also, it does incorporate a lot of the usage of the number pad on the basic 5200 controller. Now, I have not played with a lot of the third-party controllers, like the Wico Command Stick and the, Steve, I've seen it on your channel. What's the one with the 2 buttons and then the stick?
You're not talking about the Master Play clone.
The Master Play clone, thank you. Yes, exactly. So I haven't tried it on those on those controllers yet, but unfortunately for me, the soccer game is a no-win situation. There's just no way to put makeup on a pig. It is what it is. And it's like, it's a throwaway game. It's a throwaway game for every company that makes sports games because it's the same storyline over. Now, in today's games, you can do the bicycle kick. You can do the flying header. You can do the great saves, the penalty kicks, all that sort of stuff. That's fun. It's still kicking a ball into a goal. Mm-hmm. And so the whole point is they could only do what they could only do, and what they did on this game was provide the graphics, the 360 control, but there's a lot of bugs in this game, guys. And even in expert level, I'm scoring goals left and right, and yeah, you have to have a buddy with you to play this game. And even when you play with a buddy, the defender is so much faster than the guy with the ball. I mean, he just runs him down like the Roadrunner against the Coyote.
Yeah.
And he just steals that thing like something from the Acme company and takes it the other way, and you're just left there waiting for that big giant boulder to fall on you. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And by the way, the wraparound trick means that when the defender gets the ball, Dave, when you like change, when there's a change of possession, run your defender the opposite way. Run towards the goal you're trying to score. You reappear on the other side.
It's a bug.
That is a bug, all right.
Pete, excellent points all around. Soccer, well, in the U.S., all the kids start. In fact, my daughter, she's, one of the first games you start playing as a team is soccer. And the reason why it's the world's game is because you need a ball and you need a flat surface to play on. You can set everything up with rocks, and that's why that's the beautiful simplicity of soccer. But trying to make something, again, this is coming back to the lipstick on a pig. How can you make soccer intriguing, especially for a video game, and I think, Pete, you make a good point. It just turns into a throwaway game, and, get it in the box and get it out so people will buy it because all their kids are in soccer, and the kids will probably want to, it's almost like a novelty game. We did it because we could. And even though, for somebody like me just playing around with it, it's great, yeah, but to be intrigued by it, it's definitely going to fall flat. The bugs, and when you start putting out a game that's buggy, it means you just don't care. It's like they programmed it, they got it close, and I don't know where this which number was this CX number? Which CX number was it? As we scan through our notes here.
Right.
Who's quicker? Who's quicker?
Who's quicker? Who's quicker?
Those are pages turning.
5213.
5213. CX 5213.
All right, CX 5213. This is getting towards the shaky time at Atari, where everybody was kind of sitting there going, are we going to have jobs tomorrow or not? I wonder if this was a victim where a manager came in, saw the product that they had, and said, you know what? Good enough. Throw it in the box, get it out there. Let's sell it.
Exactly. It was something that was put together at 1 a.m. I'm sorry, Glenn, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That was definitely a problem with Atari when Warner picked up. They really didn't care about the content. They just wanted a name, a box, and throw it out there. Quality control definitely was more lax later on in the years. in the 81, 82 time frame. So I agree with that.
So now after my review has been torn into shreds, I guess I'll have to do some adjustment.
Are you back to 7.25?
I guess. I guess I'll do some interesting, long division and 5 out of 10.
Well, like I said, I don't want my comments to take away from the love of the 5200. I'm just saying that of all the games that they put out, unfortunately for me, this is one that's on the lower rung of the tree. That's all.
No guarantee.
What I will say though,
Pete, this is exactly. Well, no, I'm sorry, Pete. This is exactly why we brought you on the show, which was we needed somebody
to replace David.
No. No, we needed this perspective because here's football. I'm kind of sitting here going, wow, this thing is clunky, and I gotta really study on how to use this, how to play this game and everything. And then Pete, you've been playing it since almost day one, and you love the game. So this is why we needed this, because we wanted that aspect, and I didn't want previous biases to really, I wanted a fair representation of the games here on the show. With soccer, I don't know a lot I know everybody. I have friends who, play in adult leagues here in the Seattle area. But yeah, this game, when it comes to be, it's glitchy. It looks pretty. It's got the basic gameplay. It's got a lot of good features with it and everything else. But I wonder if they would have had, maybe a month or two more to debug this thing, what it could have been. But again, we're bouncing right back to, they didn't care.
Yeah, it was just to meet the deadline. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Glenn. I was just agreeing with Captain Bob.
I was just saying that at least with the Atari games, at least you had the option of playing with an opponent or the computer. When you went to, say, the Intellivision or the ColecoVision, the sports games generally always had to have another player. Now, sometimes you had a friend, sometimes you didn't. Sometimes you want to play a game, and you couldn't do it with an Intellivision or ColecoVision. You wanted to play the football, or the baseball, or the soccer. You had to have two people. At least with the Atari, you at least had an option for an AI to play. So at least something that they at least gave you that option. That always bothered me about the other consoles was, if you wanted to play a game of football or baseball, you couldn't unless you had someone there. Or you won every time, which is great to me.
When you're having a down day, there's nothing like beating the computer in soccer, man. I'm telling you.
I'll never play this game again.
Well, again, I'm not a huge video game. I'm sorry, I am a huge video game enthusiast. But as far as sports video games are concerned, I'm kind of like, meh. So I guess the reason why I kind of like the soccer game is because I'm meh. It's a meh game, and I just kind of appreciated it for what it was. But
it's also a lot easier. It's easier to play and get into than the football game, which is a lot more complicated for a beginner. Yeah.
But the buy-in on football is far more complicated. But I think like most things, if it's a big buy-in, there's a pretty good payout if you really enjoy it. This thing, I can see myself playing this game with a friend, and I think each half is only 5 minutes long. I could see myself playing this game a couple of times and then getting to the point where I'm just like, well, this will look good on the shelf, and there you go.
Yeah. Well, from now on, definitely, Peter, we want you back on the next episode.
Absolutely.
We're going to be doing tennis and baseball, and I'll make sure that with you on the show, I'll put a disclaimer that David's reviews are for entertainment purposes only and should not be used as actual video gaming advice.
Well, let me say thank you very much for having me on, and I will be definitely most interested in returning in the future, and I did not mean to shred your soccer reviews there, Dave.
No
Absolutely. And if I may say so, if we're going to continue to have a relationship over the podcast like this, there has to be a time, maybe next year, where we have to all find a way to have 5200 Fest somewhere and do a show from there all together while we're playing these games.
Well, Bill Kendrick of Atari Party has moved up fairly close to the Seattle area. I hope I'm not throwing him under the bus or anything, because but yeah, he's living in this area now. A little bit of a drive, but he is living in Washington State now. So that might be a possibility.
Well, we'd have to have. My brother lives in Port Angeles.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
Or we can have the.
That's a beautiful ferry ride.
Or we can have. Or we can have the East Coast, West Coast, because on the West Coast you've got Bob and you got Bill. On the East Coast you got me, Glenn, and Pete.
And I'm in the Midwest.
And you're in the Midwest, so.
Well, I'm technically Midwest too, so Steve.
All right,
I'm on your
team. I'll give Michigan a chance. And, I will have to say this. I'm an Ohio State grad. So I'm not going to be wearing, I'm not going to be wearing my Ohio State jersey or anything when I walk up into Michigan, that's for sure.
Well, Steve, if it makes you feel any better, I went to Bowling Green, and that's in Ohio as well. So I have crossed the border.
That's right. That's great.
I love it. I love it.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program are those of the hosts and persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of ColecoVision or Intellivision owners. The Atari 5200 podcast is not responsible if you should start liking the Atari 5200 console over its competition. At this time, the Atari 5200 podcast now concludes its podcast day and ceases recording. The Atari 5200 podcast is produced under the authority of Bob Benedetti and David Vucetic. Regular listening of this episode now continues on iTunes and other quality feeds.
Discover Atari. And discover how far you can go.
And the great thing about Glenn and Steve and guys and gals who are contributing to the retro gaming community, something that you probably wouldn't have guessed, that would even work again. You'd probably throw it out or something like that. Nope. Give it a little cleaning, give it a little love, and all of a sudden it's working like new again, and bring those memories back.
Yeah, I had two paperweights. Glenn and Steve brought them back to life.
Awesome.
There it is. There's your success
call me the
story
paperweight, so I'm happy.
Yeah.
Let me see with two paperweights.
Yeah, I was going to say you want paperweights. You ought to see the picture of David's Atom that he just picked up for the ColecoVision. That thing is freaking huge.
I saw your video on the Atom. I was like, how did you not drop that thing, Glenn? But I did see a cut in there. There was an edit in there. There was a jump cut, as they call in the business. So you must have had a near fall.
I'm actually surprised you mentioned that, because then they're going to know that David is dabbling in cheating on a 6200 loop.
Well, I was actually going to put it into the show. I didn't know if I could slide it in, but I was going to say, well, you know how Glenn, I always tell him he's a double, triple agent. Well, he's rubbed off on me, and I'm now a double, triple agent myself, it looks like. But I got to tell you, when I went to go pick up this computer, the Coleco Atom, it was like the guy who I bought it from was like your typical Joe Pesci kind of guy.
Well, I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
And really, when I went to go pick it up, I felt like I was, in a scene of Goodfellas, except it was daytime instead of night. So we go to the guy's garage.
Off the truck.
Yeah, I gotta like go this long driveway.
To the store in the corner. It's swag, so I got it down the corner. Right down there.
Yeah, it's over there, right there.
I got to go to the garage there, well, maybe for a hit or something. I don't know. They're going to take me out because I'm not the made man or whatever. But I get over there, and he shows me this huge box, gigantic. And, of course, we got to get it into my car. So we got to wrap it up in plastic bags first. And then then he goes to try to lift it to put it in the back seat. The guy's having double, triple hernias on the way there. And we slide it into the back seat. And then, of course, I put a blanket on top so that nobody can see what it is. And I said, hey, this, it was just like we filmed a hit.
And actually,
oh, yeah, we hit a deer. Oh, Mom,
Yeah.
it was horrible. Oh.
Anyway, no, it reminds me, I need this knife. I'm gonna take this. It's okay?
Okay, yeah.
I just need it for a
Bring
little
it
while.
back, though, you know.
Well, the poor thing, I hit him in his, we hit the deer in his paw. What do you call it?
The paw.
The paw.
his foot.
The hoof. The hoof got caught in the grill. I gotta hack it off.
Yeah. What's that in the back seat?
he got a really good deal on that.
I was going to say, if you ever have to, if some sort of natural disaster comes, you can just use the atom box to shelter up for a couple of days.
What
or
shelter?
something like that.
I'll lean it against the wall. Nothing's blowing that wall down. Look, I will
was
never.
Say, Glenn, thank God you don't have a cat because they would be in all those boxes that you have over there.
I will never complain again.
You're right.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, my son he'll build forts out of. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm building a fort out of my console. What are you doing?
Well, I will never call the Atari 5200 console big or the box big ever again. Once you have carried an Atom computer, you will never think of the Atari 5200 as a huge system.
You know what's funny? I remember back when that was released in the market, I was in the mall, and I saw a guy carrying one Christmas time. And I remember looking, I'm like, oh, my God, that thing, it's like you're carrying like a refrigerator.
Well, they made you buy the printer with the console, and the printer was where the power supply was in the whole thing. So you couldn't just not have the printer hooked up. You had to have it. So
YouTube didn't pull that video down. That video is still up on how to make a small power supply. But that was the selling point of the Atom. The point was you're going to pay one price, you got everything, and to save money, they shoved the power supply in with the printer, which, at the time they're thinking you're going to need the printer, so that's fine. But when you want to just use the console, half the time I don't because the printer is massive. The printer itself is as big as a 5200.
It is, yeah.
It's huge.
Well, the best part about Glenn's video was when he said that you can't even place the games next to the doggone thing; it erases its own games.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So,
that was a huge thing back there.
When Skynet sends a Terminator to your house, just flip on that printer, man, it'll blow its chip.
Scramble everything in a 10-mile radius.
And that's what really killed Coleco was the fact of they actually had in the manual, make sure you put your tape in and turn it on. And as soon as you did that, you blew your tape. The EMP from that printer wiped out the tapes. So after the initial run, they put a huge, on the console, it's a huge sticker. Keep your tapes away so you power this thing on. Then you. So that's a great way to sell your product.
If that's happening to the tapes, what's happening to you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What a great glitch. That's got to be one of the best glitches of all time.
It is.
There's a system for you. We erase our own games.
Atari never did that to its customer.
No, we didn't. But you see, that's the thing. That's the thing with recovering collectaholics like myself. You watch great videos like what Steve's got and what Glen's got, and all of a sudden Glen shows a video. Hey, look at this little miniature power supply. You can get rid of the printer. Now you just got this little power supply. I go, oh, that's interesting. I go around the internet. Oh, look, there's one for a steel.
I am a total game addict. Yeah, it's true. I'm not,
I know.
Not
so look at me. I'm asking advice from the attic. Recovering addict asked the attic, should I get it or not?
Glenn, that's definitely. I've been on your channel now, subscribed. I think for only like about 4 months now, but that's definitely your best video that I think that Atom one. Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Oh wow. Well, guys,
okay,
I
gotta go.
I was going to say, I think this has been a wonderful evening.
Oh, yeah. Peter, you were awesome.
Dude, you guys are fabulous. We could talk for hours. You guys are great.
I know, but
my head won't fit through the door now. I pulled up.
And what's amazing, what's amazing is the fact that 4 people with extremely incredible, hectic schedules actually found the time to come together and do this.
Hey, imagine that.
It always amazes me.
And now one loser is going to edit this all together.
Yeah.
God bless you, Dave. God bless you, brother.
That's all right. Trust me, by the time I'm finished, we'll all sound like we're professionals. And don't forget Pete. You got to be on episode number 6. Tennis.
You just let me know, buddy boy. I'll be ready to go.
Don't worry. I'll make sure I be really good with my review this time. Make it like lowball it.
Yeah.
And then you can come in and save the day. David, I don't think it was that bad, actually. Let me help you with your review. By the way, I got an Atom in the back of my car. Maybe you can come and help me. All right.
Good meeting you, all of you guys. Thanks, everybody.
No problem. You're honorary member of the team now. You got to come back. There's no choice. Once you're in, you never come out.
Yeah, I'm sorry that we all hate each other. So
that's all right.